Alleged coup plotters have been charged to court today and is being charged for treason. Cabinet reshuffle and Satawi Idele to take over as Minister of Finance. And treason charges have been leveled against coup plotters. Hello everyone, thanks so much for watching. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimale right here for you in our Abuja studio. There's so much to talk about tonight, everyone, on the program. But before we get into all of the details, so much is happening today. And judgments, political party, leadership issues on the table, elections are there. INEC is coming out to talk about the alleged partisanship, and a lot of issues are on the front banner. So we're going to take it one after the other tonight. But before we get into all of these issues, let's start you with some of the political roundup stories.
Justice Darius Kobo of the Kaduna State High Court has adjourned the hearing of a bail application filed by former governor of the state, Mr. Nasir El-Rufai, in the first week of June 2026. The former governor is standing trial for an alleged financial crime and abuse of office by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. Counsel to the defendant had filed an application requesting the court to grant him bail, arguing that Mr. El-Rufai poses no flight risk and is willing to comply with any conditions imposed by the court to grant him bail. However, the prosecuting counsel objected by arguing that the former governor could interfere with the ongoing investigations if granted bail. Members of the Accord Party loyal to Professor Chris Imumolen are protesting at the INEC headquarters, asking the electoral umpire to recognize Professor Chris as the authentic chairman of the party. The demonstrators are claiming that they have a court order to that effect and are questioning why INEC chose not to obey the court order. Professor Chris Imumolen and Barrister Maxwell Ngudem had been laying claims to the chairmanship of the party and even held separate primaries that produced two governorship candidates for the forthcoming Osun State governorship election. The lawmaker representing Niger East Senatorial District, Senator Sani Musa, has dismissed rumors of internal crisis within the All Progressives Congress in Niger State, affirming that the party remains united and focused ahead of the 2027 general elections. Speaking at a stakeholders meeting in Minna, the Niger State capital, Senator Musa is optimistic that the party is on schedule to conduct primaries as slated by the Independent National Electoral Commission in the state. Chairman of the Senate Committee on Southeast Development Commission, Senator Ojis Okalu, has rejected allegations that the ruling All Progressives Congress is interfering with INEC, insisting that the electoral body remains independent and deserves public confidence. Speaking with Senate correspondents before an abridged plenary today, the former Senate Chief Whip described the claims by the opposition ADC and others as frivolous and damaging to Nigeria's democratic image. The Social Democratic Party says it's begun preparations for its forthcoming national convention with the inauguration of a committee to oversee the process. National chairman of the party, Professor Sadiq Gombe, stated this after participating in the ongoing annual inspection and verification exercise conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission in Abuja. Professor Gombe says the committee would coordinate activities leading to the convention, nominations, and other party programs. In Gombe State, political stakeholders in the State Central Senatorial District are divided ahead of the 2027 elections as groups from Akko local government area take contrasting positions over who should represent the district. While some are calling for a power shift to Yamal Tudeba in the interest of equity, others are supporting the continuity of the current lawmaker representing the zone, Senator Danjuma Guje, citing experience and political stability. At the Gombe Government House, a high-level delegation from Akko local government area, including traditional rulers, lawmakers, and party leaders, pay a visit to Governor Inuwa Yahaya as they commend his administration for key projects, including the Federal Medical Center in Kumo and road infrastructure. They call for rotation of the senatorial seat to Yamal Tudeba, explaining that Akko has held the seat since 2011.
Thanks so much. There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. So President Bola Tinubu is struck today, removing one of his long-standing allies. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister, Mr. Wale Edun, has been asked to hand over following a minor cabinet reshuffle approved by President Bola Tinubu, according to a memo signed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume. Mr. Edun and the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, are to leave the Federal Executive Council, FEC, with their replacements already named. Mr. Edun has been directed to hand over to Mr. Taiwo Yedele, who was previously Minister of State for Finance, and will now assume office as Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Similarly, Mr. Ahmed Musa Dangiwa has been directed to hand over to Mutaka Rabe Dama, who is being named as Ministerial Nominee and Minister Designate for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. The federal government says this is with immediate effect. And we now know that coming out of the courtrooms today, details of what has happened after a lot of people are asking, what about the alleged coup plot? The federal government has filed a 13-count charge before the Federal High Court in Abuja against 6 individuals, including 2 retired senior military officers and a 7 police inspector, over an alleged plot to wage war against Nigeria and commit acts of terrorism. The defendants, retired Major General Mohammed Ghana, retired Naval Captain Erasmus Victor, Inspector Ahmed Ibrahim, Zakari Umaru, Burka Goni, and Abu Qadri Sani, scheduled to be arraigned on Wednesday, the 22nd of April, that's tomorrow, before Justice Joyce Abdul Malik. Also listed in the charge, but said to be at large, is the former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva. The charge filed yesterday by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and signed by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Rotimi Oyedeko, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, is accusing the defendants of offenses ranging from treason and terrorism to failure to disclose security intelligence and money laundering linked to terrorism financing. Let's tell you about more stories coming from the courtroom, this time around about party leadership. A 3-member panel of the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has dismissed the appeal filed by Mr. Julius Abure, challenging the leadership of the Labour Party. Justice Peter Lifu of the Federal High Court had on January 21 reaffirmed the earlier judgment of the Supreme Court that removed Mr. Abure as the national chairman of the Labour Party and directed the INEC to recognize Senator Nenado Usman as the legitimate leader of the party to the exclusion of all others. And dissatisfied with that judgment and decision of the Court of Appeal, Mr. Abure has approached the court of seeking to overturn the judgment of the court, and he says he doesn't agree with the position of the court and will be pursuing this further, perhaps through the higher court. All right, then, elections are here, and there's a lot to talk about with respect to the election of 2027. The electoral integrity issue is once again under intense scrutiny. This time, not just from opposition voices or civil society, but from within the very ecosystem of election management itself. Allegations of partisanship against the leadership of the Electoral Commission are raising uncomfortable questions about neutrality, independence, and institutional credibility. At the same time, internal crises within political parties continue to spill into the court, blurring the lines between law and politics and testing the resilience of Nigeria's democracy. With the 2027 general elections on the horizon, concerns are mounting. Is the electoral body truly insulated from political pressure? Are the courts overstepping into political territory? And perhaps, most critically, can Nigerians trust the process that will ultimately determine leadership? Tonight, we go beyond the headlines with one of the most outspoken voices on electoral governance in Nigeria, a man who has been inside the system and understand its strength and its vulnerabilities. Not only that he has served as a senior member of the Independent National Electoral Commission, he's also a senior member of the Nigerian Bar, a lawyer. Joining me now is Mr. Mike Igini, a former resident electoral commissioner in INEC, is widely respected for his firm stance on electoral transparency and accountability. Mr. Igini, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you, Sean, for inviting me, and a good evening, Nigerians.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's begin with a very big question. Has the electoral umpire become a player in the political arena?
Let me get the question again.
Has the electoral umpire become a political player in the arena?
Well, thank you very much. The Independent National Electoral Commission, or the ENB of our country, like any other, is a creation of the law. Under Section 53 of the Constitution, and saddled with the responsibility to midwife democratic election. And so it is not expected by action or inaction to be said to be a member of a political party. Of course, as some of us who have worked in the commission for 10 years, beyond the current issue that is going on about the current leadership or chairman, some of us in the past have also been accused of being wearing number 11 GC when I was in Cross River State, because I took a position in line with the oath of office that I took, in accordance with the duties of an umpire, that the institution of democracy, we have no hopeful future if we don't have an opposition. And so, creating a level playing field in Cross River became a problem. And I was accused of encouraging the CPC, the ACN, and other parties to challenge the ruling government in Cross River as at that time. So clearly, beyond the serious issues that have been raised with respect to the current leadership of the commission, one of the things that politicians always do is to call an umpire if and when they fail to have their way, that you are working for opposition.
Mr. Igini, I'm not sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, and from the days of Maurice Iwu consciously covering elections in this country, and there are those who will say perhaps we've not seen the EMB, the election management body, under this sort of intense scrutiny and been accused of partisanship before a major election, as we're saying, to the extent of wearing a known insignia or a cap known for a political party, would-be candidate of a political party, ruling party, saying that that is where the head of the electoral management body belongs, and that he worked with these. It's a very intense period to have dragged the INEC chairman into such a conversation. How devastating do you think this could be? Not only the integrity of the commission, but the capacity of the commission to be an unbiased umpire in this game.
Well, so it is very regrettable and most unfortunate that we have found ourselves few months, a year to election, that the EMB is under this type of controversy. You see, perception matters a lot. And public perception management index is very key by those who are saddled with responsibility to conduct election. I think that the commission, I'm not a spokesperson for the commission, and I think that the commission leadership should be able to address this issue, because perception is very key to those who will conduct election. And I think that should be appropriately addressed by the leadership to clear all that, because it's expected that all actions and inactions of an AMB official should be one that must be seen to be above board and must be seen to exhibit the highest principle of ethical standards. That is what is required, so that people can have faith and confidence in the process, that the rules are both being observed and enforced fully, fairly, and impartially.
Let's look at the matter now. I spoke with the president of the NBA recently, and he was warning about the role of the judiciary. Tomorrow, there might be a judgment about the leadership of the ADC. We saw a judgment about the leadership of the Labour Party today, and and you saw what is happening with Accord Party. Professor Mulay and the rest are fighting. It does look like opposition is in disarray. But the judiciary seems to be playing a major role. There is a substantive court judgment to the effect that court's role or jurisdiction of the court should be limited in interfering or in adjudicating in internal party affairs. But we're going into a major election, and it does look like the role of the court will be very significant in determining whether opposition's role is going to be stamped or to be wiped out. What are your thoughts? You're a very senior member of the Nigerian bar, a lawyer in the country, and you've served in INEC. Do you see a future for opposition parties in this coming election?
Thank you, Sheun, on this very important question. And I want to respond to this question by making reference to what Alexis de Tocqueville, a Frenchman who spent decades in America, when he wrote a book titled Democracy in America, he said that the survival of the American democracy, that the resilience of American democracy was essentially because of the strength of the judiciary. That hardly would any issue will arise with respect to the democracy, the rule of law, that the courts will not rise to do justice by calling justice by its name, its true name, and not technicality. This is because the first early victim of the survival of democracy is usually the failure of the judiciary, of the courts, to stand tall and mighty in defense of the rule of law. The rule of law, without the rule of law, the institution of democracy have no hopeful future in our country. And this has been the bane of our country. Because, the bullet that usually kills an elephant is not as big as an elephant. Without the rule of law, a democracy without the rule of law, a democracy without a courageous, independent judiciary has in it a virus that will lead to its death. This is the challenge of our country. The rule of law, because in any society, that arm of government that all must bow is the judiciary. Unfortunately and historically, with respect to the issue about election in our country, since 1979, the date, I say here that my constituency, the bar and the bench, the judiciary, have never been on the side of upholding the sanctity of the ballot, as exemplified by what happened in 1979, because history is a graveyard for contending opinions. In 1979, remember what happened? The decision of the two-thirds of 19 states that was decided, the bar and the bench let the country down when a panel of that Supreme Court justice said that the document that our late sage, Awolowo, sought for, 5 documents, the panel said that if those documents are released, it will be injurious to public interest. And in any case, the then CJN, Fatai Williams, who delivered the late judgment, at the end of the day, declared that that particular judgment should not be used as a precedent in future. So if the judgment was good, why will it not be used as a precedent in the future? So where we are today, we spent 10 years with my colleagues. We developed systems, we established systems, developed tools to address the historical challenge of election service delivery in our country, with the aim that the vote of the Nigerian people should be determined finally and conclusively at the polling unit, not in the court of law. Today, it is the courts that are now conducting elections in our country. Remember 1983? The same situation happened. Because, let me say this here, Sheung, and I want to beg my colleagues, members of the bar and the bench, that our profession, the noble profession, is not just an occupation to eke a living. We have a special role to play in the life of society. And that is why, when there are disputes between citizens and government, people come to us because they trust us. And that is why the judiciary stands in a very private position in the affair of our country. But regrettably, apart from flashes of cases that the judiciary seem to have done well, majority of cases has only been to uphold rigged elections now. Can I give you an example? 1983, it was landslide. And what happened? Because of that, when Awolowo, our late sage, the man who used education to put the spark of possibility in the eyes of all of us who were once in the Western region before being Midwest, Bender, and now Delta State, Awolowo said that he will not go to court because the judiciary has been compromised. That was the statement of Awolowo, who himself was a lawyer. And so, that has been the trend, the role of lawyers. Look, I say this here. If this democracy that some of us fought for, that I was detained in Enugu State, that the eventually was declared wanted, that we fought for, if it will die, I may not die. But if it dies, the corpse will be deposited at the doorstep of the bar and the bench, having failed to stand at the last line of defense of democracy and the rule of law in our country. Look, so what are we saying here? When I talk about my constituency, over the years I've been talking about my constituency. I'm not joking. The records are there that we have not done well. The June 12th crisis, and of course, remember that what happened in 1983 was what led us to 16 years of military rule until we returned back in 1999. The June 12th crisis, who were the people behind it? Of course, politicians will start it. But the members of our profession will take it up. An association that was unregistered, ABN, led by Ato Zeribe and Abibola Davis, they were the one who went to court. They went to court. Unregistered body. They went to court. Despite the provision of section 13, subsection 32 of the decree of 1993 that barred the court of the land after so many shifts of the date by Babangida administration and barred court in the land not to entertain any suit or give any ruling or order stopping the whole of that election. So, who was the president that sat at 10 p.m.? It was Justice Ikpeme, a member of our profession, that sat at 10 p.m. to give an order stopping that election. And who were the people that fight the matter? They were lawyers who did that. All the decrees that were promulgated at that, who were the people? They are lawyers. And of course, on the 11th of June, the same government said, look, the view of that decree number 13, the election must go on. And of course, Justice Boshu, the Lagos, somebody applied the matter in Lagos here. And that the matter should go on. Election should go on. And of course, election went on. Professor Humphrey Nwosu had released 14 results, including the Federal Capital Territory. What happened? Somebody again, lawyers, they went to the High Court in Abuja under the Chief Judge of the High Court, Justice Ibrahim Salem. He gave an order to stop the release of election. Despite Section 13 of the decree, they went to do that. Just as today we are debating about what is happening in the ADC with respect to Section 83 of the current Act, where now it has been interpreted, maintenance of status quo is now meant removal of status quo. These are very strange things that have happened. That election, that was what led to the June 12th. On the 23rd, when INEC appealed and the judgment was to be delivered in Kaduna, what happened, Sheung? On that very day, this is very important. That very day, 23rd of June, what happened? An unsigned press release was to the effect that June 12th had been annulled. Who were the people behind that? They were lawyers. And what did Babangida say? What did the federal government say? Government said the reason why they had to annul the election was to, one of the reasons they gave was to prevent judicial anarchy. They placed the whole thing at the doorstep of the judiciary. Now, can you compare this to what happened in that jurisdiction? As a matter of fact, what I have seen, the trend is that the judiciary that was so courageous, very audacious, under the military, when we were under the rule of force, today we are supposed to be under the rule of law. The judiciary is not living up to its expectation, particularly, and I must say this here, I commend always some of the finest members of the bar, some of the finest judges we have. Unfortunately, many of the very, very finest ones are not the ones that have presided over some of the matters that have created problems for our country. So this has been the trajectory of our country.
Invariably,
Today,
what you are saying is that the election,
handled.
Yeah, invariably you are saying the election of 2027 and the success of it lies with lawyers and the judiciary.
Of course, Cheung, the point is very clear. We seem to have set up, as always, the judiciary to not be the final determinant of election in our country. Remember in 2007, just as there's a provision in the Act now taking up by 2007, when ballot papers were not serialized, how did the Supreme Court come to the determination of the will of the people? The 2007 election ought to have been annulled, irrespective of the fact that generally it is believed that the Red ruling party would have won that election. But how do you account for ballot papers that were not serialized? It was a decision of 4-3. That was the situation like this. The reason why in United Kingdom, that for a period of almost 100 years, there have been no post-election education, because the courts in England are very strict. In United Kingdom, you can't hear a politician saying that you rig election, you say go to court, because they boast about it, that they have judges that they are their friends, they can get any order in court, and that's what has been happening. Look at what happened in the 2022-23 election. The primary that were conducted, the party direction that was issued by the Federal High Court was to the effect that all pre-election matter should be commenced by way of originating summons. And indeed, to speed up that process. But what happened? The new law that was put in place when the primaries came, from Abia State to Zamfara, all those who went to challenge the outcome of their primaries went to the federal court and commenced by way of written summons. But when the case of Mohammed Lawan, the former Senate president, came up, which was the first before that of the Senate president, what did the court say? The court said it should have commenced the matter by way of writ of summons. And that was all the cases were all thrown overboard. Particularly those that have succeeded at the Federal High Court, at the Court of Appeal, were thrown overboard. In that case, why is it that the court would not even follow the new statute that have been put in place to address the mischief of the past? That did not happen. So, John, let me say this here. A judiciary that shows signs of weakness, collapse, or succumb to the intimidating influence of corrupt politicians, the democracy will be endangered. This is where we are at the moment.
Mr. Igini.
And it's so unfortunate
I'll ask you
that we have found ourselves where we are.
Yeah,
because I repeat again.
Yeah.
How do we, today that, I mean, I just heard you talking about some matter coming up in Supreme Court tomorrow and all that. By virtue of Section 83, subsection 5, which is a new provision entirely, that says no court in Nigeria shall entertain dispute involving members of political party, which is also in line with the judgment of Obaseki JSC in 1983, when he was delivering his lead judgment, that those are matters for the leadership of political party. Today, despite that, if I be judge and lawyers come before me, I will ask them to address me on jurisdiction first. I will draw the attention to Section 83 and look at the tragedies that have happened now. From Federal High Court that have no jurisdiction to the Court of Appeal, and now they have found themselves at the Supreme Court. So the question now is, how do we say that an order, for instance, to maintain status quo means removal of status quo? How do you say that?
Quickly, we need to go on a break, Mr. Igini. But before we do that, I'd like to know, from your own point of view, the implication, because the coalition political party, the judgment of tomorrow might determine whether or not they will be on the ballot. By the provision of the amended Electoral Act 2026, it means that if whatever happens within the next few days is not resolved, ADC might not, as is presently constituted under the David Mark leadership, might not have themselves on the ballot. What implication does that portend for that election and our democracy?
So, let me say here that the institution of multi-party democracy will have no hopeful future if there's no institutionalized opposition. Because political parties remain the essential organs of the democratic process. Without an opposition, then of course we cannot be talking about a political party, a multi-party democracy. This is what we have fought for over time. And that was the reason why we ensured in our time in office that the opposition must survive. Remember, guys, we used to have what we call inter-party committee to encourage the political parties and others. So, I must say this here. The Section 83 is very clear on this matter. It is hopeful that the law lords will decide on the matter you have referenced tomorrow. And we'll see what happens going forward.
Give me a moment, Mr. Igini. We'll go on a break, but there is a concern as raised by Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who says there are fears that elections will be rigged at the Collation Center during this election. I'd like you to weigh in on that when we return. Plus, we've heard the Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, speak about the opposition, the role of Honorable Leke Abegide. He's gotten a lot of Nigerians talking. I'd like to get your view about what this means about opposition and the 2027 election. That's going to be after this break, everyone. Join us again.
Across Nigeria, a quiet transformation is happening
cities, in communities, in the lives of everyday people.
I got to know from a friend of mine when I was trying to see how I can get the house.
The dream was never the problem. Finding a simple path was.
MRIF solved two key issues for us: affordability and accessibility.
With over 100 billion naira already dispersed, thousands of Nigerians are stepping into homes they once only imagined.
The whole process took about 6 weeks.
Through accessible financing and trusted support, MRIF is removing barriers and opening doors, making home ownership simpler, closer, and real.
MRIF is real and accessible with flexible repayment structures of up to 20 years.
You can have a dream and it will come true.
MRIF, your path to home ownership.
Malaria is gone. No more cold and pain.
What is wrong with my husband?
Ma, he was very sick in the office. This is the lab result.
Thank you, Luther. With Luther, malaria is in big trouble.
Luther contains artemether and lumefantrine, and it is used to treat malaria.
Luther is another quality product from Hovid and marketed by Pharmatex Nigeria Limited.
This is a new understanding. Citizens play their part. Government delivers on its promises. Tax is no longer just about compliance. It's the new partnership for a greater Nigeria. The new Nigeria Revenue Service stands not as a tax collector, but as a trusted custodian of what we built together. It's a new deal for a better Nigeria. A greater Nigeria, built by us, funded by us. Message brought to you by Nigeria Revenue Service, NRS.
My baba, they always say, for market, every day gets your own wahala. Sometimes people go on scam you. But Baba say, no be by gra. You must cool down, dey sharp. Because with OPay payment, your money go enter sharp, no story. But inside market, anything fit happen. One day, we no see phone again. My baba remember OPay USSD lock, that's star 955*131#. Baba press am, lock account. From market woman to driver, from small boy to big man. Now OPay, they protect people like us. My baba fit sell, press phone, collect POS, and still they teach me price. And when they don't tire, go just tap OPay night guard. We no fear for this our hustle life. Now OPay be the people payment shield.
Nigeria is moving forward under the leadership of Mr. President and renewed hope agenda. Across the nation, road networks are improving, bringing development, better connectivity, and economic growth closer to the people. In Ondo State, the GMT chapter is taking this message to the grassroots through impactful programs, sports activities, Jigi Ashuwaju outreach, and the inauguration of GMT ESCO members. GMT Ondo State will also begin unit and ward meetings across the state, alongside another round of free Jigi Ashuwaju materials and free eyeglasses for the public. The Electoral Renewed Hope Agenda campaign will visit major markets, engaging traders and residents on the achievements of the administration. Nigerians are encouraged to continue supporting Mr. President as he delivers on the Renewed Hope Agenda. This program is powered by GMT Ondo State and sponsored by Honorable Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, Minister of Interior. GMT, in God we trust.
Across Nigeria, young people are discovering something powerful.
They feel it's just side gig, like side hustle. But gig for someone like me is real life work.
Their skills can travel the world. And through the Gateway program, women, persons with disabilities, and displaced youths are gaining access to new opportunities in the global digital economy.
People are getting access to jobs that they may not otherwise get had they been looking only at the local economy.
Participants can specialize in tracks like graphic design, digital marketing, UI/UX design, and video production and editing. The Growth Pathway enables skilled creatives to strengthen their portfolios and access global gig work. The Foundation's Pathway supports beginners, build core technical skills, and secure their first gig. Visit gateway.cchub.africa. It's free.
Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. Mr. Mike Igini, a very senior lawyer and a former resident electoral commissioner with INEC, has been speaking with us on the stage of the preparation for the 2027 elections, the role of the judiciary, and what citizens must do. Thanks so much indeed. There are those who have been accusing the ruling party of decimating and destroying the opposition party. And the president had come out to say, well, he would not be the advocate of helping the the opposition parties. That is happy that the parties are confused and not getting their act together. But maybe that was further reiterated by the chief of staff to the president. And there are those who are now criticizing the APC, the President Bola Tinubu government, that they are indeed responsible for almost killing the opposition party, or responsible for the manner in which the opposition party has said. Man, we've seen the video of the viral video, social media video, to the effect that Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, as a social event, was seen to have said, quote, for a man to contest, and he was referring to Honorable Abejide, who was suspended as a member of the ADC. He said, for a man to have to contest in a place like Kogi under a relatively unknown party and win back-to-back elections, it tells you who that man is. He went further to say, my charge to you is to stay in the same party, fight them, scatter them, hold on to your party, do not abandon them. We like what you are doing, hold on to your party, do not abandon it. Continue what you are doing, win your election there, nobody can take your party away from you. The allegations against the ruling party seems to have been linked to what Mr. Gbajabiamila and what the president has also said in the past, that the APC is responsible for destroying the opposition. What are your views about this, Mr. Igini?
You know, Seun, since I left the commission, I haven't played the role of an umpire, which was the reason why I refused to take consultancy from any politician. Is because having been an umpire, even after leaving office, I still want to avoid partisanship conversation. All I could say is that it's unfortunate. I have seen that video. It's unfortunate. And I would say that those who have been well served by this democracy that we fought for should do well to protect it. Any attempt to stifle opposition, it will be tantamount to shooting the hip of democracy. That should not happen. And so we want to appeal to the key stakeholders to be mindful of what they say. Because the challenge we're having today is that despite all the enormous reforms that have been carried out by INEC, this reform has not been complemented by the behavior of political actors who have always been the greatest threat to the survival of democracy in Nigeria. You see, as we are now, we have already entered the season of intolerance. From the things people say, what they are doing in breach of the law. I mean, you'll be getting a report about political parties being prevented from holding meetings, from using civic center, from using public media apparatus. These are clearly a violation of the 2026 Electoral Act that says that the civic centers, television stations that belong to either the state or the federal, these are assets of the nation. And that those who are contesting the election, who are challenging those in power, that they all have access, they must be given access. As a matter of fact, rally is a matter of right. And indeed, the 2020 Electoral Act, like the previous one, have already made it very clear that the duty of the Commissioner of Police of every state, with respect to the use of venue, it should be on a conducive manner and everybody should be allowed. But the report we are getting across the country is quite frightening. And I'm very worried, all right? And that we must warn that this democracy was hard won. And that nobody should do anything, particularly those who have benefited from it, and not those who fought for it and all that. Today, when I look at the country all over the years, those who never fought for democracy, apart from only those who fought for democracy, I find them all over the place, messing up the entire process. Those who have little or no philosophical insight to what leadership is all about have found themselves in position of authority. Look, Cheung, if we don't fix our politics, we can never fix our economy. Because at the center of issue of development is politics. Because developmental issues are embedded in politics and political processes. It is those who sit at the round table of politics that determine issues about development. And so we must ensure that this democracy must survive. And the way it must survive is to by way of, engaging on ideas and not on insult. I see very soon the campaign is going to be based on insult and not based on issues. And that's why I've always advocated, right from 2010, there must be a debate for people who want to go to office. The greatest promise of democracy is peaceful transfer of power. That is why we embrace democracy. And the whole embrace of democracy is because it brings about participation and accountability to the process of human development. So nobody, no group, whoever in power, because today, if some of us did not make the sacrifice, if we did not take the risk, well, myself, I would have been a dead man by now. In Edo State, the government came to my house. My colleague and the entire family were wiped out. If we didn't do what we did in 2015, those who are in office who came in 2015, they would not have been 2015 if we didn't stand tall and mighty in defense of democracy and the rule of law. They would not have been 2015. They would have been 2023, 2019, 2023, and it's 2027 that we are talking about. There are people who stood up
Mr.
to do the right
thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Let me jump in quickly. And my worry here is, as much as the opposition points accusing fingers at the ruling party that you destroy our opposition and you are destroying democracy. I'm one of those who will say, can the opposition also reflect and look inwards? Yet, the statement like by Mr. Fenberger and some other people in the ruling party points to the fact when people say, where is the evidence that the ruling party is responsible? The kind of statement from Mr. Gbajabiamila points at the fact that some members of the ruling party may have participated actively in helping to destroy and decimate the opposition party. But can the opposition party also take responsibility for their own failure and their own inaction and leaving, because all of them went to sleep after 2023 election. They left everything when 2027 is coming. They're now scampering and looking for power. Is the opposition able also to take responsibility for their own failure and say, we failed in standing up against what could have been the destruction of the opposition party? Because the destruction of opposition party in a democracy like ours is the destruction of our society.
Sean, you remember that after the 2023 election, where we did so much, develop processing and procedure to get the best of election for our country. And after the outcome, remember that the fact that the last leg of the election had issue, and people were saying, Mr. Igini, you told us this, you told us that. I was right in what we did, because you remember that election produced even Okada riders. But here's the point I want to say here. And that is that when you say opposition, because I basically, part of the problem where I don't even know so much that happen when it comes to that, because I told you I put my television on Chinese station because I was fed up of so many things that I was seeing and all that. So I know, I will see, I read some of the people after the election. There were people who were still going around, who were still engaging and all that. But if we now have a situation where, I just mentioned to you, if what is happening to political parties in Nigeria, if it were to be in the US, It will not happen. It will be in UK. It will not happen. I just gave you an example. That, for example, in South Carolina, a Supreme Court have to annul election. And another instance again in the US, election date have been fixed. A candidate of a party, like what happened before in the 2020, the senior advocate, the candidate of PDP. Do you recall that the crisis of that PDP during that period, we had so many plethora cases all over the country. You remember that you were the one who organized debate for the governorship candidate between our late SAN, Akeredolu, and another candidate. You remember that the candidate of PDP, because the PDP crisis was warehoused, it was warehoused until less than 24 hours. He did not participate in the debate you conducted. That will not happen in other parts of the world, since judiciary have a role to play. And that is why this example I want to give to what happened in the US. Election have been fixed. 48 hours to that election, the candidate that was picked resigned. And they now picked a runner off to that in that primaries. That matter was challenged. They went to court. The moment the matter landed in first court, because a date had been fixed, the date will never change. By way of what the court stated, the Court of Appeal was on standby. Supreme Court was on standby. Before 48 hours, the matter was determined. But in Nigeria, what do you have here? When you have a pre-election matter, you are required to be given half year, 6 months to be determined. Of course, pre-election matter, it goes almost ad infinitum. Governorship election, it takes 6 months. At the Court of Appeal, 60 days. Supreme Court, 60 days. That is not done anywhere. We were in the US. Over 40 cases before the election were resolved. I was in Kenya in 2013 for the conduct of election, where on the 13th, on the 4th of that election, a candidate manager was found with money buying voters in Kenya. He was arrested. The court was on standby. He was taken to court. He was arraigned.
Mr. Igini.
Was summary,
Mr. Igini.
That was what happened.
Yeah, Mr. Igini.
You see that happen here in Nigeria?
Mr. Igini, give me a moment because I have one more question for you before we close the program. But it's going to be after this break. Thank you so much, Mr. Igini. I've just got 60 seconds to go on the program and to quickly conclude. There is a concern raised by Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who says he's worried that election manipulation will happen at the collation center. What are your biggest fears? Is Mr. Atiku right about that concern because of your experience? If there are ways elections of 2027 could be rigged, which are these ways?
So, I do not have the information the former vice president has at his disposal that inform what he has said. But clearly, the 2026 Electoral Act already has provision to undermine the 2027 election. I just give you two provisions. Apart from Section 60, Subsection 3 proviso, where they say if there is no network, I will know that there will be no network again by 2027. But here are two provisions that are very concerning, which shall be put in there. And of course, this matter is not going to go to court. Section 137 Subsection 3, Nigeria should go and check it. This provision is to the effect that a presiding officer, a returning officer, all the categories of people that will participate in this election, that it shall not be necessary to bring them to testify in tribunal. Hello.
Mr. Igini, we're totally out of time, but I must sincerely thank you for your effort tonight. Mr. Igini is a very senior lawyer and a former President Electoral Commissioner with INEC. Thank you so much, Mr. Igini. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much indeed. I appreciate it. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Akimale. God bless Nigeria.
Lawmakers within our national and state assemblies are the voice of the people. Women occupy only 21 out of 469 seats in the National Assembly, a mere 4.5%. While in the states' assemblies, of the 991 legislative seats across the 36 state houses of assembly, women hold only 54 seats, or roughly 5.4%. It is abysmal that 15 states currently have no women represented in their legislatures at all. This means that half of Nigeria's population is effectively shut out of key decision-making spaces. This imbalance is not due to a lack of competence, ambition, or leadership capacity. Nigerian women have consistently demonstrated excellence and delivered measurable results across every sector: business, civil society, and public service.
Hello, everyone. I am Honorable Mrs. Mary Sinjan, the Commissioner of Women Affairs and Child Development, Taraba State. At the heart of every strong democracy is fair and balanced representation. Yet in Nigeria today, there is still a clear gap between who makes up our population and who sits at the decision-making table. The special seat bill for women is a practical step to close that gap. It is not about preference, it is about performance. It ensures that more qualified Nigerians have a seat where laws are made and national priorities are shaped. Stronger representation leads to better debate, better decision, and stronger public trust in our institutions. I call on my colleagues to support this bill, not just as a policy choice, but as a commitment to strengthening Nigerian democracy. Let us act with purpose. Let us move forward together. Thank you.
Distinguished lawmakers, soon you will cast a vote on the Special Seats Bill for Women. Beyond legislation, you'll be answering a question that will outlive all of us. On which side of progress did I stand? Your vote is the opportunity to uphold that legacy of leadership. The Special Seats Bill provides a critical opening for the national and state assemblies to correct the gender imbalance in women's representation in the legislature. We urge you to support a legislature that truly reflects the people it serves. This message is brought to you by the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC.